Let's go to number 3. I have the Detroit Lions here. I had a real struggle trying to evaluate the Detroit Lions draft. They did some things that really made you scratch your head and think, what the hell are they thinking? They did some things that were actually pretty impressive, and they walked away with overall a pretty good stable of young players. That being said, it's hard to look at this draft and not feel like it was just a ton of wasted potential and draft capital. The first thing that I don't like about the draft is that Tyree Wilson fell to them at 6 and they passed on Tyree Wilson. That was the first thing I didn't like about their draft. They have some really nice prospects. I'm not going to say anything about negative about Jahmyr Gibbs or about Jack Campbell or about any of those guys. I think they can turn into be fantastic pros, but none of them had the upside or were the caliber of prospect that Tyree Wilson was. And Tyree Wilson was sitting there at their laps, and they traded back. And then the second problem I had is what they did at 12. And again, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think he could turn into a fantastic pro. But why are we taking a running back at 12 when you have the 18th pick and no one else drafting behind you has a serious running back need? No one else had Jahmyr Gibbs in mock drafts going in the teens, much less very few had them even going in the 20s. Most of them had them going in the second round. Why are we wasting a number 12 pick on that when you can take him at 18? You want Jack Campbell, you can take Jack Campbell at the 34 pick that you got in the pick with in the trade from Tyree Wilson. They could have still had their guys just later, and they could have gotten a stud like a Christian Gonzalez to shore up that secondary, and then drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, and then drafted Jack Campbell, which would have been a hell of a lot better than drafting the tight end they got at 34 or 36, whatever. I think it was 36. Wasn't even the best tight end on the board at the time. I'm not a big fan of evaluating prospects too heavily before we watch them actually play professional games. There was a pretty consensus opinion. Michael Mayers was the best tight end available at that time. I don't think any draft experts or analysts would disagree with that one. Other thing I did not like about this draft, if you know you're drafting a running back, they knew they were getting Jahmyr Gibbs. So much so they were willing to spend the number 12 pick on this guy. They knew they were getting Jahmyr Gibbs. Why did they trade DeAndre Swift after they drafted him? Why did they kneecap their own leverage in a trade? If you know you're drafting a replacement, trade DeAndre Swift before drafting the replacement. You're using the number 12 pick. No one else, don't worry, no one else is going to take Gibbs off the board from you. Get some value out of DeAndre Swift. You were able to flip a former first-round pick from just a few years ago into a future fourth-round pick and a swap of seventh-round picks. After you've already drafted his replacement, obviously that's the best you're going to get for him. I still think they're in a position to be the best team in the NFC North, and I think the players they drafted are going to help them get there. I have an issue with the players they drafted. I have an issue with when they drafted them and how they managed not only their draft capital, but also their trade assets throughout this draft process. Trading up to get Brian Branch, though, that was their highlight. And that's what keeps them from going lower than number 3 on my list.
The Brian Branch move, probably the best move that they made. Not just because of where they got him, but who they got him from. Is the Green Bay Packers as well, and didn't give up much in trade. They gave up a 5th-round pick to go get him. As far as the DeAndre Swift thing, I don't honestly know if you're getting more than a 4 for him to begin with. The biggest thing you can attach to DeAndre Swift so far as a pro is he was a former first-round pick.
If you look at just standalone value, yeah. But when you look at packaging him with other draft picks and be able to move up or down the draft the way you want to, that's where you can really use him as an asset. It was just a mismanaged resources.
I keep praising the Lions for everything they did in this offseason. Bringing in Cam Sutton, bringing in Emmanuel Mosley. Emmanuel Mosley came in on a 1-year deal. Cam Sutton, 2-year deal. So the guys you brought in aren't for the future. Christian Gonzalez is there. Jack Campbell was a projected late 2nd, early 3rd round pick, but was being touted as one of the best middle linebackers in the draft. Okay, if you want to reach for him at 18, there's no edge rusher there, in my opinion, that you take. If linebacker's where you're really putting your emphasis at 18, fine. But you could have also, with the extra draft capital you just got trading out of 6, if Jack Campbell was that important to you, could have traded back into the end of the 1st or the beginning of the 2nd round to go get him. I didn't understand that pick at all.
He's an interior linebacker. Mm-hmm. He's a middle guy. He's not going to be running in too many nickel or dime packages. There wasn't another interior linebacker drafted until the 3rd round. He went 18. So that tells you just how much stock NFL teams put into guys that can only play that position. If they're in a position to take lead of that division, And when you're trying to do that, you don't want to waste any resources. You want to get as firm of a grip as you can. And you want to put your foot down and say, I'm here and I'm here to stay. Their secondary is not that deep. They're an injury tour away from having a shitty secondary again. How many teams do you know get through a full season with both starting cornerbacks playing all 17 games?
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. They need depth at that position, and they need more talent at that position. I really wanted to see them get another piece in the secondary or on the defensive line, on the edge rush. One or the other, get more depth and more talent infused there with the number 12 pick or the number 6 pick.
It's almost the counter argument that we were making for Atlanta. You take Bijan at 8. Okay, nobody's really expecting Atlanta a top contender in the NFC. We have those kind of expectations out of the Lions right now. Everything they added, you could have added more pieces, not only for right now, but for the future. None of their shit made any sense for what the Lions fucking did.
The Lions got better, right? Like, the Lions took their shitbox V4 engine and upgraded it to a V6. They could have had a V8, right? They could have had a fucking V8. That's the best way I can think to describe the way that the Lions mismanaged their resources in this draft. They got better. Absolutely, they got better. They could have gotten even so much better, in my opinion.
If you were going tight end at the beginning of the second round, Kincaid came off the board in the first. Like, I get it. But number 2, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Was Meyer out of Notre Dame, and you took the fucking Sam Laporta out of fucking Iowa. Like, that shit made no fucking sense.
Michael Mayer was such a better valued prospect. He was a complete tight end. He wasn't a just receiving option. He was a, I can block, I can go out, and I can catch. I am a full package. I am fundamentally sound in all my skill set tight end. Who's your number 2?
At number 2, for biggest whiffs for me when it came to the draft. And it really, my only problem out of it came out of their first round pick. Because it was just another misuse of their pick when there was better talent at that position for them available. And this is hard for me to say this too, because this team, in my opinion, made one of the best moves in the offseason. They made the best move as far as it comes with the first round of this draft. You had them get that massive haul from Carolina for the number 1 overall pick. They got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and DJ Moore out of the deal. Massive haul for 1 pick. And then they got more future draft capital by moving back a slot with the Eagles. Brian Pools went into this offseason going, Justin Fields is our guy. Do we go and make moves to protect our quarterback? Wouldn't be the worst move to make if I was the Bears. Now, they went offensive tackle, but they were the first ones to do it. They had their pick of the litter, and they didn't take the best available guy there. I apologize. I said that they had their pick of the litter. Cardinals took Paris Johnson at 6. Correct. Darnell Wright, absolutely someone who could blossom and be turned into a great tackle in the NFL. But this kid started at 3 different positions over 4 years on the offensive line in college. That some people might read that as, oh, he's got versatility. It could also be read that this kid couldn't find a spot to where he was comfortable on the offensive line until his senior season when he locked in at right tackle. If Justin Fields was left-handed, that move would be brilliant because he's a right tackle protecting his blind side, but we only got one of those quarterbacks in the NFL, and he plays in Miami. You had Skoronski, you had Jones, you had so much better and highly sought after talent on the O-line, and you went with a guy who's probably going to be a project at 10.
I don't hate the move of getting a tackle, like you said.
Yeah.
I don't think they took the best tackle. I don't think they took a top 3 tackle. I think this guy, I think he was somewhere around the 4th or 5th best rated tackle in the draft. And from all the tape and metrics that I saw, I think that I agree with that assessment. Most mocks had Darnell Wright coming off the board in the 20s, right? And somewhere around there. And when you had a guy like a Pete Skoronski, who's a proven talent, Broderick Jones to me would have been a great fit there as well. Either Skoronski or Jones would have made a lot of sense before taking Darnell Wright. I don't have nearly as much issue with the rest of the Bears draft. I don't have an issue with the way they used the number 9 pick to move down to the number 10, get more draft capital. I thought that was very well executed. So the Bears did some good things. I do agree they were on the bottom half as far as overall what they did with their draft capital. Your number 10, he's there to protect your quarterback, protect your franchise piece. It's too immediate for them to go project there or to go a developmental piece. And maybe he is more ready than we think, and he can step in day one and be that protector that they need him to be.
If you're looking to take a tackle to build and to try and mold into that next guy, you take him in the 2nd and the 3rd round. You don't take him at number 10, bro. that's my number 2. Who's your number 2?
Ooh.
Here we fucking go.